This is the Private Officer Beat Radio with Rick McCann at the microphone.
We start off this morning with some very tragic and sad news coming in across our nation. 3 security officers murdered in the past 7 days. 14 others have been shot. We know that Bobby Smallwood, a security officer at a Portland hospital, was murdered during a confrontation of some sort in an emergency room. We don't know if he was a contract security officer or if he worked for the hospital themselves. We don't know if he was armed or unarmed. But what we do know is that he's dead. Risked his life during an incident. No other employees injured, no patients injured. Police finding that shooter and killing him. A security officer in Houston at an apartment complex is dead. Tenants hearing gunshots called 911. Police arriving quickly at that scene, locating the shooter. Another security officer shot 7 times at a game room, also in Houston, Texas this week. We know that 14 security officers also were shot. Some of them did return fire. A security officer in San Francisco also murdered. This just coming into our office early this morning. We don't know anything more than he was murdered while on duty. Thanks to a Facebook message, we're checking into this. Across the nation, violence against law enforcement and others in uniform, including private security, is in a substantial whirlwind, huge rise. Let's understand the dangers of our field, of our business. We can no longer pretend that this is observe and report. When we have this many known security officers shot and murdered in just a week, imagine how many others have been shot and the media just didn't pick it up. Welcome to this edition of the Private Officer Beat Radio. We have a big show for you, a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, we have to bring you that bad news first, but let's move on with the rest of our program here today.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Private Officer International's radio show, The Private Officer Beat, a production of Blue Ram Media Group, LLC, and Private Officer International. And I'm Rick McCann, founder and CEO of the organization, and I'm just glad that you are with us one more time. I was talking with someone just over the weekend. We have hit a milestone. We've had well over 800 radio shows as a company. Not all of them are POI. We also broadcast several other radio shows, and if you haven't heard them, you can go to iHeartRadio / Coastal Alabama's Highway 98 Radio. You can also listen to our POI radios right there and more than 30 other platforms. So we do broadcast live, and then it's simulcast and also streamed on more than 30 different platforms. Any place you can get your music, your podcast. I mean, it's today it's available every place. We have a fairly large distribution now, so we're getting more hits from not only the U.S. but from other countries, which we have always had some listeners in other countries, but that seems to have gone up in the last couple of years due to the expanded distribution. Remember that you can be part of the conversation just by going to facebook.com/privateofficer.org or twitter.com/privateofficer. And, of course, you can read our news 24/7 at privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. Great comments about my last radio show, Service Above Self. that really, was done heartfelt. Most of my radio shows are. I spent a lot of time researching, a lot of time thinking, and like a minister preparing his sermon for the service, I really reflect on my own experiences, that of others, and I read a lot. And while sometimes it does seem like I am the bearer of bad news because of all of the officer arrests and the negative, sometimes feelings that we have about private security, it's really just part of the job. We don't want to twist the news any way other than straightforward. And so we don't sweep things under the rug. We don't pretend like things don't happen. We definitely highlight the good, but we also have to deliver the bad news as well. And that includes officer down, officers killed in a line of duty, including this past weekend in Fargo, North Dakota. A police officer was killed. 2 others were shot. Not a lot of information released just yet, but we are following that news. And tragically, violence against those in uniform continues to increase. Also last week in Birmingham, Alabama, a major city in the state of Alabama, 2 firefighters were shot inside of a fire station. Police now calling it a targeted attack, and no arrest. A 3rd firefighter escaped without being injured, but a gunman came into the firehouse and shot these firefighters. Keeping with the state of Alabama, not too far from Birmingham, in a city called Hueytown, a security officer was shot there at a car wholesale place, and police also say they believe he was targeted. They don't know why, if it was something that was non-job related or something that was related to his work in security. And we hear all the time now, it used to be almost never, but it's frequently targeted shootings. Some of our security officers have been killed on the job, targeted by people that they knew from the streets, and unfortunately the shooters knew where to find them, knew where they worked, and that's where they killed them. But this week we do have a lot to talk about. I definitely have a lot of breaking news. I have some exciting news. We've been talking about all of the upcoming free conferences. I'm a little disappointed, I can't lie. I'm a little disappointed at the weak response to the free Private Officer International Conference happening in Alabama in the end of September, but we've had some response. But there's another free conference in Tinsley Park, Illinois, which is going to be great. It's free. It's an annual event, and it's for private security and law enforcement. And I've announced a number of regional trainings, and unfortunately those responses have been weak as well. I've heard from POI members and non-members, well, it's a cost situation. They can't afford hotels, they can't afford the gas, and I understand all of that. Unlike as is, where they really have more management personnel and executives, as membership, most of our members are frontline members. We do have management, we do have owners, we do have federal and state and local law enforcement, we have regulatory officials and so forth. We have a variety of different members across not only the U.S. but multiple countries. But we are looking at and talking to someone about putting some type of lodging together for those who truly cannot afford lodging. So we may have an answer to your problem, and we'll keep you posted on that. We certainly have a great lineup of training for that conference planned, and we also have a memorial service planned, and we want as many people as possible to attend, and we don't want anything to stand in your way. We can deliver training by audio and video. We can certainly have a lot of training, which we do on our radio shows, but being in person, Having scenario-driven training is the best type of training that one could get in any field, whether it's medical or auto mechanic or plumbing, whatever it might be. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, of course, we have a lot more to talk about. You're listening to the Private Officer B Radio. We'll be right back. Are you a recently retired or maybe active law enforcement officer looking for a different future, maybe owning your own business, former military, public safety, private security professional, EMS, or the fire service, looking for a new way to make a difference while running and owning your own business? At Public Safety Services, we provide services to those who protect us around the world. I'm talking about the police, the sheriff's department, the military. Our organization provides community service officers, private law enforcement, prisoner transport, traffic investigators, and many other public safety service related services to law enforcement agencies across the nation. You can own your own business, be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. Contact us at publicsafetyservices.org. Let's talk about how you can make a difference today while owning your own business. Are you looking for the finest private security officer training in the Charlotte metropolitan area? Do you need PPS qualifications in armed or unarmed training? Or maybe you're over there across the line in South Carolina and you need the SLED training. Well, we've got the right training at the right time for you. Premier Training Academy, located at 5624 Executive Center Drive, Suite 142 in metropolitan Charlotte, North Carolina. Give them a call today, 704-806-4933. They also offer firearms training, personal protection, first aid and CPR, and so much more. Call John at 704-806-4933. In the last 2 weeks, a number of news headlines have given me pause and excited me at the same time. It seems that across the country, in certain pockets of certain areas of the country, business owners, communities, DAs, and law enforcement have come to the realization that it's time to give back, time to go back to the place where the law meant something and enforcing it was necessary. Recently, in the last few months, I've noticed many headlines where communities themselves have come together with the police for meetings. Churches have gotten involved, business owners, and what's known now as stakeholders have all come together asking for some type of revision and action in enforcement of the law. A common sense plan. In some areas, they continue to not really strongly enforce some of the laws, such as someone who has an expired tag for less than 30 days or a cracked windshield. There are minor traffic infractions that continue to be, put on the back burner, and that's understandable, especially with the lack of police. But in many communities, times are changing. The pendulum swings both ways. And in this sometimes crazy world, it looks like everybody hates the police and no one
has any regard to the law. But you know what? That's not exactly true. There are many people, even in minority communities, who are begging for police to enforce the law, to patrol their communities, and to stop some of these violent crimes that are occurring. In Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, 150 carjackings so far this year. In 2018, there were only 140. The majority of those carjackings, they say, are being committed by juveniles with firearms. Just recently, in Montgomery, Alabama, an 8-year-old led police on a pursuit after he carjacked a person at gunpoint, 8 years old. He crashed out during the pursuit. He's been taken into custody, and now the state is considering prosecuting him as an adult and arresting his parents. Sands shift. We've heard that phrase, shifting sands. And that's what it means, ever-changing. We know that things that were once good, that history repeats itself. Clothing styles repeat itself. All sorts of things repeat itself. And so, although in some areas of our country it's still chaos for the police, they can't enforce the law the way that they should be able to, but I have hope, and times are changing. In some communities, they've brought back specialty units that were done away with during the George Floyd era. And just recently in Denver, Colorado, the Metropolitan Police and area sheriff's departments of a number of counties got together and formed a task force to stop and cite all of those driving with expired tags, some of them 5 years expired. 3 weeks ago, Virginia State Police stopped a vehicle driving down the highway with a tag that expired 10 years ago. Police departments now are stepping up enforcement back to the era of the 90s and 2000s, enforcing the laws that they have been commissioned to enforce. And I just heard a police chief say that his officers, this was in the Atlanta metro area, will continue using the necessary force to effect an arrest which is allowed by law. A Florida deputy this past week was just found not guilty of using force to make an arrest. He was arrested for doing his job, but he was found not guilty and immediately put back on the payroll, and he's been off the job for about 18 months during this whole process. They have to pay him all of his back wages as well. He makes $91,000 in regular salary, so he's going to collect all that plus some. The pendulum is swinging back to where it was 5 years ago. An anti-terrorism unit that has been operating even after the George Floyd situation just came forward with some of their investigations that they have been conducting in the last few years. So yeah, things are happening behind the scenes. And I got another example, and it just really stirs the hope within me. Many more communities are allowing RTCCs, real-time crime centers, and license plate readers, APLs, automatic license plate readers. They are on top of the polls, and every car that goes by, they run it to see if it's been stolen, if the driver's wanted, if there's any criminal history with it, and it can allow police to track criminals that have just committed a burglary, a robbery, or other offense. And more communities are agreeing now to allow that technology to be used within their city, even though for a number of years, it's been said, well, it's an invasion of privacy, and, people they're tracking us. Well, I got news for you. There's a camera everywhere. Businesses, homes, even civilian citizens. Don't you have a camera on your phone? Don't you take it out every time you see the police stopping someone? I got hope. I have hope. And I think in the upcoming 12, 24 months, you're going to see a vast change in policing. Many minor crimes may be deleted or put on the back burner, but many serious crimes are going to be enforced strictly. Police in many communities will enforce the law by the letter, and they won't ignore expired tags or people that have no license. I just read another article, which really, I think, in a way, it's great. Police in some communities are restricted and have been restricted from towing vehicles that have no tags or expired tags that are parked on the road, abandoned, but that the homeless live in. But other communities are beginning to tow them for a number of reasons. And I can understand having empathy about, people who are homeless and people who own these vehicles that may use them as their homes, but they cause issues. They're not only unsightly, many of them are in poor mechanical shape, so if they do get on the road, they are a danger not only to the driver, but to other drivers on the road. And many times, these owners don't have a license, don't have insurance, so if they are involved in an accident, who's going to pay for it? The other driver. Many cities have free bus systems for the homeless. They give them passes. You can get them through social services. And there's a lot of different arguments, but the bottom line is the law is the law. We can only do so much to help people who don't want to be helped. But the shifting sands, the swinging pendulum, many other things that point to times are changing. And law enforcement, little bit by little bit, are getting back to some normalcy with what they can and cannot do. Now, on the other hand, many agencies are understaffed. I mean, there are police agencies that have 300, 400 or more vacancies. New York City has hundreds and thousands of vacancies. But I am just, I think, positive with some of the headlines that have come out recently. So where does private security fit into all of this? Well, first of all, private security is usually on the front line and the first responder to many types of calls, everything from trespassing to emergencies, fires, medical cases. Today, we're going to talk about some of the good that we do, but it's across the nation. We've got to be a community that works together, whether we're private security or we're citizens or business owners or law enforcement or the church community. We all have to do our part and be united on stopping violent crimes. Otherwise, our country is already in sad shape, but I believe that we can do it. We can turn it around. I remember, because I'm old, how it was in the 60s and the 70s. I can remember the violence, the bombings of police stations, and all sorts of, protests and riots, and we turned it around. I think our country is better for what we've done. Our country is not perfect. We're not perfect as individuals, but I think together we can definitely make a difference, and we can definitely change the things that need to be changed. We need to take a break, but you are listening to the Private Officer Beat Radio, a production of Blue Ram Media Group, LLC, and the voice of the Frontline Protector.
Nurse, I need you to apply pressure to the head wound until I can get to it. I'm concerned she's lost too much blood.
Oh, no.
You in the corner, who are you? You're not supposed to be here.
She's my girlfriend, Doctor.
You need to wait out in the waiting room.
Please, Doctor, I want to stay with her.
Look, she's been badly injured. So if you want to do what's best for her, you need to let us do our work.
Please, Doctor, she has to be okay. I didn't mean to do this. I love her.
Wait a second. You were the driver?
Yes, But I didn't mean to. I swear, we went to dinner. I was just buzzed. I only had a few drinks.
Just buzzed? Why didn't you tell us that? In that case, your girlfriend is fine.
Hey, sweetie. I feel great. You want to get out of here?
I can't believe this. Really, Doctor? She's really okay?
What, are you kidding? No, not really. Nurse, get me a suture kit. Stat.
Buzzed driving. Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Ad Council, and this state.
It's a very simple thing. It only takes 2 seconds. We all know we should do it. We all say we do it. But do we? About 35,000 people were killed in motor vehicle accidents last year. More than half were not wearing a seatbelt. A brother, a father, a mother, a best friend. Is it worth it? I lost a sister. Don't let it happen to you and your family. Tell the people you love to buckle up.
Over 2 decades ago, I approached a small town and talked to the mayor of the town. They didn't have a law enforcement department. A police department didn't exist. The county sheriff made their best attempts to patrol that town and respond to any emergencies, but they didn't have any physical uniform presence. And at that time, I was doing a lot of Section 8 tax-deferred and HUD-type properties, a lot of patrols for businesses and communities with my security company, one of my security companies that I owned at the time and still do. And the conversation went very well. They had minimal budget, but we did it on a very part-time basis. So I approached other towns during that time because I thought this would be a good service to offer for taking non-emergency reports. We had a lot of retired and former police officers in our employment, and I thought maybe we could even handle the non-injury accidents and the accidents that occur on private property, such as apartments and shopping centers. And, you know, at that time there was some pushback, and a few people were interested. A lot of departments said, no, we handle it, we have the manpower. But that was 20 years ago. And now, times have changed, and many police departments are hiring civilians to investigate non-injury accidents and to serve as what's called community service officers, where they take reports, respond to incidents that are not in progress. Sometimes they take care of parking enforcement and other situations, including traffic control, where no law enforcement presence is necessary. Well, guess what? I still own a security company, and I own another company called Unified Public Safety, and this is a great time to reintroduce that service because many police departments and towns are hungry for it. And in New Orleans, there's a company there that provides traffic investigations at no cost. They don't charge the city of New Orleans anything because they work with insurance companies and they're paid through the insurance companies. In some states, there's what's called an SR-22 form, and that's an accident form where no investigation is necessary and you basically exchange information. So now I'm reintroducing these services and have for a number of years, but we're aggressively introducing these services across the Southeast, and we're tying it in with some other services that we also are either currently providing or will be providing in the near future. Well, what does that mean for you? Right now, many people are frustrated with private security. And in our conversations over the years, especially in recent years, during COVID, with the lack of PPE, the lack of support from employers, I've heard a lot of negativity in private security. But here is an opportunity to be on the next level. The next level is providing professional services to law enforcement communities. Now, I kind of hesitate bringing this out and putting it out there because this is what always happens. people hear something new and they jump on it and they think they can do it, even though they have no experience, no money, no startup, no business savvy, but we're going to do it anyways. It's better if you sit back and partner with a company like Unified Public Safety and work through our company, which is well established and has a lot of contacts in law enforcement. And we provide a training academy. We provide all of the support services, all the legal services. We provide the meetings to get the contracts, insurance, and so on and so forth. So, Unified Public Safety Services, go to their website, go to publicsafetyservices.org, and I think that this is an opportunity that people really need to check out because it's just the next level up. It's not law enforcement and it's not security. The other thing is, as a business, you'll be able to charge a higher billing rate. You'll be able to position yourself in a more community, professional level, and you'll be able to. I'm excited. Can you tell? You'll be able to provide services for your community that may not be and probably aren't available, and it's just a better gig, I would say. Unified Public Safety. You can go to publicsafetyservices.org. If you want to learn more about it, if you want to set up a meeting or a conference call, send an email initially to helpdesk@privateofficer.com. They'll forward it over to management or myself, and we'll set up a time when we can talk more about it. Publicsafetyservices.org is perfect for retired or former law enforcement, military, first responders, fire, EMS, and military really does well with this because it's very structured. Again, contact helpdesk@privateofficer.com. If you want any further information, go to the website, publicsafetyservices.org. We also provide private police, sworn law enforcement in a number of states and communities. And this is an opportunity, I'm telling you, if you own or have thought about owning a private security company, and you really have some background, some experience, you might want to look at this instead of contract security because, like I said, it's a much more professional service. You're dealing with cities, counties, government. You're providing a much needed service in your community, and it's a higher billable, and there's just a lot of upsides to it. Helpdesk@privateofficer.com. We are going to take a quick break. We will be right back.
There was the explosion, and I remember just opening my eyes, and it got both of my legs. I had surgery after surgery, and what's going to happen next? The Wounded Warrior Project said, look, brother, everything's going to be okay. 3 months from now, 4 months from now, a year from now, you'll be fine. I don't know if I would be as well adjusted as I am now if it wasn't for them.
To learn more, call 1-877-832-6997 or visit woundedwarriorproject.org.
Body Armor USA, we've got what it takes to protect you. Whether you're looking for the top quality protective armor or protective clothing, stab-resistant vest or gloves, contact my friend Ben over at Body Armor USA. Give him a call, 516 area code 817-1666. Again, that's area code 516-817-1666. Body Armor USA, we've got what it takes to protect you. No doubt about it. In the news roundup for this week, as always, we have a lot of news coming in to the POI office every single day. We really do appreciate all of the various members and followers, readers who contact us regularly to let us know what's happening in their area. Please keep it up. If you see news happening in your area, contact us at helpdesk@privateofficer.com. A New York City hospital security officer is suing the NYPD after his middle finger was bitten off by a psych patient while being transferred at a Brooklyn hospital. According to the media release, the security officer said the police disobeyed their own policy when they unhandcuffed the man to transfer him to the psych ward. The man then went off, began assaulting the security and law enforcement officers, and during that melee, the security officer's finger was chomped off. There's no comment currently from the hospital's attorney, and this trial is set to go to court. A Delaware community is mourning after a 15-year-old heroic lifeguard died while on duty at the Fullcroft Swim Club. A spokesperson for the family said the 15-year-old was a sophomore at a local high school. They're not revealing exactly the cause of death other than he died while on duty. This past weekend, the community came together for a Christmas toy drive in his honor. No other information has been released. Lifeguards are part of public safety that we often forget about or don't include, but they do die on the job and are injured more frequently than you might expect. In Eastland, Texas, the county sheriff's office there is mourning the death of Deputy David Bosker, who was killed in the line of duty at around 9 p.m. on July the 21st. Deputies responded to a domestic fight call in progress. Authorities say the deputy got on scene first and immediately received gunfire from the suspect. He was fatally shot and wounded during that call. Other units arrived and caught the suspect. Authorities say no one else was injured. The deputy had been in law enforcement for 21 years and was a certified master peace officer in Texas. A person impersonating a deputy sheriff scammed a woman out of $14,000. The woman and her husband were arriving at the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport from vacation last week when she suddenly got a call on the phone from someone who identified himself as a law enforcement officer with a federal warrant for her because she failed to show up for jury. During a number of conversations, the man was able to scam the victim out of $14,000, which was made in payment through Bitcoin. Now, Richland County, South Carolina Sheriff's Office and authorities in Georgia are both investigating. A security officer in Washington, D.C. is under arrest, charged with stabbing a man during an on-duty confrontation in the 1200 block of 18th Street Northwest. Officers were called to a stabbing. When they arrived, they found one victim with multiple stab wounds and a security guard nearby. He said that the men knew each other and got into a quarrel of some type, and that's when he stabbed the victim. He said that he was being assaulted and he was just defending himself. A 26-year-old man accused of posing as a high school student has been arrested on sex crimes in Lincoln, Nebraska. Zachary Schwerick was arrested after police say that he got into high school and posed as a high school student and somehow was involved in several relationships with underage minors. He's charged with 3 felony counts of sexual assault and 3 counts of using an electronic device and 1 count of sex trafficking a minor. He's currently being held on no bond. Coming out of New Jersey, a security officer was strangled during a fight. This happened at a business where the security officer was on duty. A number of people who were in the area did call 911. Police have taken one suspect into custody. The security officer was transported to the hospital. His condition is unknown. 2 visitors to the University of Georgia campus have been arrested after an early morning shooting over the weekend. Athens Clarke County Police and the University of Georgia Police responded to the call. The vehicle fled, but shortly later was stopped by Athens County Police. 25-year-old Zachary Baker and 24-year-old Mark Jarrett, both charged with 5 counts of aggravated assault, 1 count of having a weapon on school grounds, 1 count of possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and 1 count of reckless conduct. A D.C. Special Police officer shot a man who had shot someone else. The Special Police officer, a fully commissioned law enforcement officer in the District of Columbia, was providing extra security for the transit system. Authorities say the officer confronted a group of people who were fighting on a train platform shortly before 11 p.m. Metro Transit spokesperson Sherry Lai said that one person then pulled out a gun during the fracas and that 2 people in the group struggled for control of the firearm, which fell to the ground. One of the teenagers picked the gun up and shot a man, and that's when the Special Police officer fired upon that person. The man who was shot by the suspect and the suspect who was shot were both transported to an area hospital, and their condition is non-life-threatening. A long-time Georgia Lowe's employee has been fired for trying to stop a shoplifting. According to 68-year-old employee, she was working in Georgia at a Lowe's when she observed a lot of merchandise going out the door in several shopping carts, and she stopped them to see if they had a receipt. That's when they shoved her with the shopping carts and made their getaway with more than $2,000 of merchandise. Well, now Lowe's has fired that 68-year-old woman who had been an employee for about 15 years because she intervened in the shoplifting against company policy. In Austin, Texas, the Austin, Texas Independent School District is considering adding 70 more police officers to their staff to comply with the new Texas school safety law. The Austin Independent School District will be taking applications to comply with House Bill 3, which is a sweeping piece of legislation providing school safety to all schools in Texas. A number of other police agencies, SRO positions, and internal police agencies at schools are also hiring. A former Georgia police chief and his family members who had been charged with racketeering charges having to do with his position at the White, Georgia Police Department was found not guilty during a jury trial on Friday. The city of White's former police chief, David King, his son-in-law, Officer Black Chef, the chief's wife, Jane Richards, all served as employees of that small town. They were accused of conspiring to profit illegally through their positions, but a jury trial found them innocent. A New Mexico State Park Ranger received an award recently for saving the life of a 10-year-old. Navajo Lake State Park Ranger Supervisor Leah Kirkedy has received recognition for saving a 10-year-old by using CPR. This occurred during a situation where the boy lost consciousness after a near drowning. A Brinks security officer shot and killed a man at a Maryland Starbucks. According to a police report, the man came behind a counter of the store. The security officer was picking up money at that time and felt threatened and opened fire, killing the man. According to police, this is still under investigation. Jonathan Griffin, 35, of Upper Marlboro, Maryland, died on scene. Police have not charged the security officer, but do say it is under investigation. Keeping with the armored truck theme, an armored truck was robbed. Security officers held at gunpoint during the robbery. This occurred in Miami Gardens, Florida. federal authorities are asking for the public's assistance. This occurred at 1 p.m. Thursday at the Bank of America on Northwest 2nd Avenue. Police say no one fired any shots and no one was hurt, but they did hold the Loomis security guards at gunpoint while the robbery was taking place. A security officer in Houston, Texas is recovering after being shot 7 times at a game room. According to police, the robbery occurred at 4:45 a.m. Investigators are still looking for several men who robbed the game room and shot the security officer. The security officer is currently still hospitalized but is recovering. A longtime City Hall security officer and former retired Phoenix police officer passed away. Many recognized his face immediately. Knowing him from the service as a police officer and then spending many years as a Phoenix City Hall security officer, Manuel Quinones, 89, passed away. He was just many to many, they say. He was a towering but soft-spoken man. You could find him on any day behind a security desk on the 11th floor. He had many stories to tell in his 30-year career as a law enforcement officer. They say that he was a pleasant man, a big man, a burly man, a tall man, but he was really a gentleman at heart. 4 men in Texas charged with impersonating security officers. Police in Texas rounded up 4 men at different locations during an operation after several complaints. Police charged the 4 men with a felony of being unlicensed and working as security officers. We need to have much more of that. A Houston man is suing another Texas security officer and company after they say that he was illegally detained at an apartment complex. He was threatened with arrest. He doesn't know why. He was there to visit a friend. He wasn't disorderly. He was bringing Taco Bell food to his friend when all of this occurred. The security guard pulled out his stun gun when the man exited his vehicle, threatened to tase him and then to shoot him. The man left but was later arrested by police. He's now suing Signal 88, the apartment complex, and the security guard after being found not guilty. An Illinois security guard was bitten and pepper sprayed. This happened in Darien, Illinois, at a nightclub. Surveillance shows that a woman, now identified as Catherine Everween, 27, began fighting with another person. When security intervened, she pulled out pepper spray and then bit the security officer. She's been charged with numerous counts of assault and disorderly conduct. How about this one? We told you last year, L.A. County, the Sheriff's Department, and the FBI are investigating, even still today, after more than a year, $150 million worth of jewelry stolen from Brinks. It seems that 2 Brink security officers were transporting this to some type of show. Now, one man got out of the vehicle in the parking lot and went to get some food, supposedly. The other man took a nap. When they woke up, they found that the back door to their vehicle had been broken into, and between $100 and $150 million of jewelry and high-end watches were taken. Well, now the FBI and the local sheriff's department in L.A. say they've got a few new clues. They are still on top of the case. No word as to whether or not there'll be any arrest, but it sure does sound a little suspicious to me. After a disturbance in Delaware at a casino, security detained a man, 38-year-old Mitchell Harding. He already had been trespassed from the casino. Police were notified, and subsequently the man was charged with not only trespassing, but possession of methamphetamine and possession of crack cocaine. Excellent work by casino security. New Orleans, Louisiana released this past week that they have the fewest police officers in more than 75 years. According to the NOPD, they say they are short hundreds of officers. Their staffing level is the lowest in 75 years. They can't respond to many calls. Officer safety is at risk. We're seeing this across the country and probably no end in sight anytime soon. A slain Home Depot loss prevention agent was honored in Pleasanton, California. Members of the community and law enforcement came together to honor the slain loss prevention officer and aspiring police officer Blake Mose, who was killed after confronting a shoplifter at Home Depot in April. Tuesday marked 3 months after 26-year-old Mose was shot to death while trying to detain a shoplifter. Police said the loss prevention worker was shot dead by the thief who walked out of the store with a charger for a power tool. A 32-year-old suspect, Benika Naps, has been charged with murder. We reported this on the day that it happened, and we have been following this, and hopefully through the trial process, this man will be punished. In upstate New York, a school system there say that they overwhelmingly voted to have armed guards in elementary and secondary schools. This is a turnaround from when they released their SROs a couple of years ago, but now they are hiring back security officers. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here on the Private Officer Beat Radio.
Who knows what a child will grow up to be? It's one of the coolest things about kids. The unknown, the potential, the chance to do or become whatever they can imagine. But what if something happens during childhood that stops them from reaching that potential? Did you know that preventable injuries are the #1 killer of children in the United States? And around the world, 1 child dies from a preventable injury every 30 seconds. But the important thing to remember about preventable injuries is that they're preventable. We can do something to stop them. Things to make sure kids get the chance to be creative and play. The chance to take chances and explore. The chance to fall down and get back up. Help us give your kids, and every kid, the chance to grow up, reach their potential, and become whatever they can imagine. Learn how at safekids.org.
Slow down.
Slow down and move over.
And move over. When you see lights,
Best. All reflectors.
please give us some room. Slow down and move over. When you need us,
We've got your back.
you have ours.
You got our back?
You got ours? You got our back? Please, slow down.
And move over.
With all of the going-ons here in the private security world, we've talked about all the advancements in technology use and the vast changes in the private security field, much of which is being ignored by company owners and even the clients themselves. But across the country, we monitor what's happening in law enforcement, in private security, even the bail bonds and bail enforcement and PI industries, policing, we monitor that all 24/7, almost 3,000 news sources, international news sources. And we've talked a lot in the last few months about technology really becoming prevalent, playing a vital role. Cameras, robots, drones. There's no way to turn our back on the technology, no way for us to shrug our shoulders and say, that's not for us. It is for us, and unfortunately many companies are going to be left behind if they don't start getting up to speed on the technology and start training their personnel. But as I say all of that, and as I continue having that conversation locally as well as online, a couple of other things that we've noticed over the last few years, and really some of these are not new at all, and that is now some industrial locations only are hiring contract security companies who can provide security/EMT. I just saw an ad over the weekend that said security/paramedic. That is a substantial credential that one must really go through a lot of hours to obtain. And then now, and again, this is not new, but it is becoming more and more advertised in conjunction with a security contract or even a proposal, a request for proposal, and that is some industrial locations, manufacturers are now requiring that they also, security teams also be trained in industrial firefighting. Now, for many years, many large manufacturers, until they all closed down and went across seas, required to have their own on-site industrial firefighting team. All of them are employees trained to do some firefighting, but also some of the larger companies had their own full-time industrial firefighting team that also responded to medical calls. Well, now we're seeing that security, several recent articles and also job postings said contract security must be able to provide security officer/industrial firefighter. Now, industrial firefighting is much different than fighting a structure fire or a car fire or a brush fire or being a wildland firefighter. It has a whole lot of other components, including hazmat, chemicals, fires that burn very, very hot because of the material or the chemicals involved. And so to really kind of increase our abilities to contract out to very large businesses, we're going to have to undertake a lot more than we have with just a basic security course and a basic security offering, much like police are doing across the country. Every day I turn a page or a website or a newsletter, I look and I see the increased training being mandatory. No longer just, well, if you want to do it, that's good, but if you don't want to, no problem at all. It's not mandatory. You don't have to. Well, now many agencies require everything from CIT training, CIT, that's crisis intervention technique training, to having multiple certifications in less lethal options, not just OC or chemical spray and baton and taser. Now there's other methods. I recently, it's been a while now, was certified as a BOLA wrap instructor. If you're not familiar with that, it's not a weapon, but it is a restraint device. Check it out online. One of the very cool, unique type of devices. And we're going to see more and more police departments also issuing those as well. Not that there's any room on the belt. The duty belts are full, but it is a great weapon. And I'm really surprised that not more agencies are out there using it. Some are and have found them to be excellent in restraining and stopping the use of force, any level of force, because once they're restrained, it's over pretty much. But security officers, not only nationwide but worldwide, are also being asked to be better qualified. And instead of a company they have to hire an EMT, they have to hire an industrial firefighter, they have to hire a hazmat team. Instead of doing all of that, now they are expecting that their contract security agencies will provide those services. And a paramedic course, depending on what state you're being certified, will take a couple of years. It is just a little bit lower than an RN. In fact, many have bridge programs where as you go through the paramedic, you're also going to be able to bridge into the registered nurse, RN credential. And very good if you really want to work in the hospital environment, a clinical environment, rather than just out in the field. That's a good way to get that credential. But security as a whole is being asked to do more, and I think we're not even seeing it. And getting back to that nurse thing for a moment, in North Carolina, about 3 years ago now, just before the pandemic actually, we put a bid into a school system because they were very short on nurses, and they were asking for any type of contract service that provided certified medical personnel that could come in and help the shortfall of their nursing at the schools. And again, I'm seeing this more and more. School systems, besides having to hire supplemental security because SROs are no longer available, the same is true for medical staff, for RNs. They've even begun hiring LPNs, which are a lower classification of nursing. Still, they can do some basic triaging and first aid and some other stuff. There's nothing wrong with being an LPN at all. They are a necessary force multiplier, and they do great work. So here we are. Schools are now looking at security maybe to also provide EMS services within the school system. If you don't have the ability to do the training, or you don't have the ability to hire that category, that classification of people, or you don't have a willingness to consider, hey, we can no longer just provide access control, gate guards, and static, look, don't touch, don't respond. Unfortunately, my friend, you're not going to be around very long. There'll always be business for access control, unarmed, limited training, limited service, you're just there as a body to watch, observe, and report. Well, what's going to happen when they're killing you? Can't report that. It's a changing, evolving profession, and unfortunately, we're not on the boat. We're not on the train. We're not on the cart. Whatever it might be, we're not on it. We're not getting it. We get it at Private Officer International because we spend so much time going through all of the news alerts, going through all the various magazines, the professional magazines from law enforcement and various security associations and groups, not just here in the U.S., but around the world. They have the same thing happening in the UK, Australia. Things are changing. South Africa, they have security officers with automatic rifles patrolling properties. I have read for years about how aggressive and forceful these security teams are because they're many times being hired in lieu of law enforcement because there's just not enough law enforcement there. We are having the same problem in the U.S., but no one really is, jumping on the roof and shouting on the rooftop, and we're hearing it, but we're not hearing it loud and clear. As more and more companies, clients, customers look to security to supplement law enforcement, we have to up our game, and we have to be fully prepared, because if not, your employees will be injured more, your employees will be killed more, you will be sued more. There are a number of lawsuits in the court right now that's, all about not providing sufficient security. They had contracts, but they didn't provide sufficient security on that contract. And also, the larger companies, they've got tons of lawyers, and I'm sure that their contracts are worded such where they're not really responsible for a whole lot if everything does blow up in their face. But the smaller and the mid-sized companies, not so much. They don't have those attorneys. They don't have that money to keep attorneys on the retainer. They don't have that money to spend if they do get sued. So they try to settle it through their insurance company. But guess what? Some insurance companies are dropping security companies who have too many use of force claims, who have too many high-risk clients such as nightclubs, strip clubs, high-risk, low-income apartments, and other clients, and it's getting more and more difficult to get insurance for security companies who have armed security or high-risk accounts. We are not going to survive this new wave of responsibility, this new way of thinking for customers and clients if we don't prepare now. We're already past that time when we should have been prepared, when we should have had the training, when we should have begun recruiting, better qualified applicants. We need to kind of decide, as I've been saying now for quite some time, we need to start deciding now if we're going to be a observe and report only, no matter what's going down, no matter how many people are being shot, no matter what's happening on the we're just going to observe and report. We'll call 911 and then we'll run and hide. I got news for you. Most companies won't tolerate that anymore. They don't expect that. When they hire security, especially armed security, they expect you to hold the line and to do whatever it takes, and that means putting your life on the line. And if you're not ready to do that, if the company's not ready to do that, then you're in the wrong business or have the wrong client. Security. We've been yelling, screaming, touting this for years. The evolution has not only begun, we are in that evolution just like law enforcement was 50 years ago. And they're still evolving. Look at all the different training that they have to continue taking, all the different responsibilities that they have to take a hold of. The days of just doing the bare minimum are over. I am very afraid for those people that just get into security for a job, a paycheck. And I am really afraid for those people who are not trained or very young and have no experience. It's not going to be good for them. Too many times private security officers believe if they take whatever the regulatory training is, 12 hours, 24, 40, whatever, that's good for them forever. They don't have to worry about it. They don't have to increase training. They don't have to take any other courses, only what their employer or the state regulatory agency requires. And this, my friend, is like walking through life with blinders on. You're not going to survive. You're going to have a lot of bumps and bruises if you have those blinders on. You may even fall into the hole of death. I don't know how many times we have to cover the same material, but I'm telling you, go on the web, look at what's happening in security, look at the requirements, go to Indeed.com, go to some of the other job boards and see what the requirements of security are today, especially the professional upper level security. As I say, I believe there's about 3 levels: entry level access control, the middle of the road armed security, and then the higher professional security that guard a lot of the rich people. Armored trucks is really very high risk, and then you have private police as well. That's going to do it for today's radio show. Thanks for being with us on the Private Officer Beat Radio, a production of Blue Ram Media Group, LLC. Remember, Private Officer Breaking News.blogspot.com is available 24 hours a day, as is our radio shows, and join the conversation on Facebook.com/Private Officer International and Twitter.com/Private Officer. Until the next time, y'all be blessed, be safe. We'll see you back on the radio.